And I'm crying over James Carstairs. Last week, I spent a good minute or two literally begging for a mere mention of either Will Herondale or Brother Zachariah. That was all I wanted, just one name drop. What I didn't expect was for a week later to have an actual Jem Carstairs placed in front of me. I was not ready for that, okay? I have been hoping that we would get Brother Zachariah, but we still hadn't had any mention of him up until this point, so I thought maybe we'd mention him and then get there eventually. I thought we'd know in advance, beforehand. Maybe we'd get an announcement. Oh, by the way, we've cast Brother Zachariah. He's gonna be in the show now. No warning. No chance for me to make a casting video like, hey guys, we've got our Jem. None of that. They just dropped him. I just wasn't ready. We have Jem. We have Jem. I really wasn't expecting Brother Zachariah to show up in this episode. So yeah, I will talk about him more later on because I want to try and discuss the rest of the episode as well, because there was so much happening and I'm stressed. First of all, I want to talk about Jace because, you know, this really wasn't his episode. I mean, he wasn't even Jace. We saw last week Lilith has slipped him a little something in his drink to make sure that he falls out of love with Clary. She needs him to kill one more mundane so that she can bring Sebastian back to life. That scene between her and controlled Jace, I can't get over how terrifying she is when she was walking around him telling him that he was going to find everyone he loved dead. Yeah, you just don't want to mess with her, do you? So Jace is trying to find another mundane to kill. He needs to select somebody who will then kill one of their loved ones. He looks for somebody who is glowing, so that's what he's searching for throughout this episode. And the first time he's out searching, Alec ends up finding him, so he ends up getting disrupted. Alec is confused, thinking that he should be in the City of Bones receiving treatment, but Jace convinces him that he's had his treatment and that the Silent Brothers just work super fast and that he's fine now. He has to go back to the Institute and keep up this pretense of him being perfectly fine now. We get this really awkward scene where he reunites with Clary. Poor Clary in this moment. Like, I felt for her so much because all she wanted to do was hug the love of her life, and the love of her life was stiff as an ironing board. That hug was so uncomfortable, oh my god. He literally has no feelings towards her whatsoever. He just treats her like a colleague, and you can tell that she knows something is up. That's not her Jace. Of course, she has no idea what is actually going on. Later on, he ends up having to go to dinner with Mayrus because she is back. Mayrus in this episode, there is nothing more heartbreaking than having to see her without her runes. I was really hoping that there would be some way to stop her from being de-runed. I was hoping we'd get to revisit her before it actually came to that. But no, she turned up in this episode as an outsider. It broke my heart seeing her try and get into the Institute, but the person at the door wasn't allowing her in until Alec stepped in. So proud of Alec for the way he handled that, saying that she would always be welcome in the Institute. What a good boy. She tries to convince her children that she's fine because obviously that's what mothers do. They hide their pain away from their kids. But the minute that Izzy gets her alone, Izzy knows that there's more to it and that everything is not okay. What I loved is that Mayrus did open up to her and tell her how she was feeling. I can't praise Mayrus in the show enough. She's just such a wonderful character. So I really appreciated that scene between her and Izzy where she told Izzy how she was feeling. So Mayrus ends up taking the kids to dinner. She sees the way that Izzy was smiling down at her phone. She knows that there's a boy involved and wants Izzy to bring him along. The minute Charlie was brought up in this episode, I had a feeling what sort of situation we were going to end up in with regards to Jace looking for a mundane. The fact that both Charlie and Ollie magically showed up in this episode whilst Jace was on the hunt for a mundane I mean, it was pretty easy to figure out what the hell was going on here. I knew that one of them was in danger, especially with Ollie's conversation with Luke about Sam, her girlfriend. It didn't occur to me until later on in the episode that the person that gets possessed kills their loved one, and this episode made a point of bringing up Ollie and Sam's relationship. So yeah, I did figure out what was going to happen, and I was stressed. The minute Charlie walked into Hunter's Moon, I knew he was going to be glowing. This dinner scene itself between Mavis and the others, it was a lovely moment for the four of them to talk, but it was bittersweet because Jace wasn't actually Jace. It was difficult to see Mavis trying to come to terms with this new life. Obviously she was talking about having to get a job. Yeah, it was heartbreaking, but I like that she got to have that catch up with Alec and Izzy and not really Jace. Magnus is supposed to show up at this dinner, but of course he doesn't. While we're bringing that up, we might as well just get it over with and talk about the Malik angst. We knew that it was coming. We knew that it was going to hurt. The Malik scene that we get is at the start of the episode, and at first it looks all cute and domestic with Alec cooking for Magnus, but then he mentions that Magnus can put his spatula in his memory box and it all goes to shit. Despite the pain, I have to take a moment to appreciate salty Alec. Literally king of salt. I equally loved and hated him in this scene. The argument between them, no. Alec being hurt at the thought of being a memory, Magnus having to raise his voice. Yeah, everything about that scene was pain. It just wasn't nice. What I do love is that Alec's emotions about this situation are really valid. I mentioned this last week, but I felt with the books, Alec was just more sulky than anything else, and it was so hard to take him seriously because he wasn't being mature enough about it. And even though Magnus tells Alec in this episode to stop acting like a child, I think show Alec has still got more valid points. The way he explains how he's feeling is better to me than how Alec handled it in the books. So far anyway, we really don't know what show Alec is going to get up to in the future and whether he's going to do exactly the same as book Alec. But it's the fact that show Alec is more mentioning the age thing and the fact that he doesn't want to be a burden, and he's bringing it up and saying it to Magnus's face straight away rather than sulking about it. I mean, he goes to sulk later on when everything doesn't go his way, but I liked the way that conversation between them happened. Even though it was tense, it got everything out in the open. So that really was the only Malik scene that we got. It just meant that the two of them were really angsty for the rest of the episode. Alec ends up getting drunk and talking quite a bit with the Shadowhunter from last week? Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? I literally can't even remember. But that guy with the blonde hair who found Alec inspiring. Magnus, on the other hand, ends up distracting himself by helping Clary. The first thing I want to say is that I absolutely love the fact that him and Clary got to work together in this episode. I love Magnus and Clary interactions, and we definitely don't get enough of them. And he also called her Biscuit in this episode. What a blessing. I love Magnus. I love Magnus so much, and I love how much he cares for Clary. It's just pure. Clary goes to Magnus with a drawing of the demon that attacked her. There is a trace of that demon still left on Clary, so Magnus ends up discovering that it's the same demon that messed with the ley lines. They still don't know that it's Lilith, but they know that it is a dangerous demon and it's the same one. With how serious the situation is, Magnus decides to ask for help. That message comes back and he mentions that it's from Brother Zachariah. I mean, I screamed. I've been waiting so long for a mention of Brother Zachariah that I lost all shit, and that was before I even saw him. So the mere mention of him was good enough for me. And I honestly thought that was all we were going to get in this episode. But then we jump to later on. Magnus and Clary are standing there in the cemetery and Brother Zachariah is there. He's there. So let me just cry about him for a minute or 12. His hair still has a bit of silver in there. Clary gets confused because he doesn't look like other Silent Brothers, but he says that's a story for another time. For anyone that hasn't guessed by now, I absolutely adore Jem Carstairs, and he is literally one of my favourite characters of all time. So yeah, hence the freaking out. He looks great, okay? I mean, we haven't really seen enough of him to judge whether he is the perfect Jem for us or not, but right now he is perfect, okay? And yeah, I love him already. I am willing to adopt and protect. How dare they cast Jem and not actually tell us? I mean, half of me is very, very glad that they managed to not tell us anything, because it gave us a much bigger shock. Normally we are told in advance which characters we're getting and who is playing them. Even with this season, we got told that we were getting Jordan, and we got told who was going to play him. So I was expecting a casting announcement before we actually got Jem/Zachariah. I didn't get to make a video screaming about the fact that we'd had our Jem cast because he just appeared. So yeah, that was the biggest surprise. It was such a brief scene, but it was beautiful. He mentioned Will. Like, he had barely been in this show for 3 minutes and already he's talking about Will. That's what we need. So not only did I get Brother Zachariah, but I also got the mention of Will Herondale that I wanted. I freaked out as much as Clary did when she heard that name. Straight away she was like, Herondale? Herondale? Mood. That is my mood. After he name drops Will Herondale, Clary asks him about Jace and whether he was getting treated. And of course, Zachariah tells her that he hasn't. So of course, Clary and Magnus now know that something isn't right with Jace. Outside Hunter's Moon, Magnus is able to piece together a bit of what is going on with Jace. He realises that the woman who came to him for help, who wanted that potion that makes people fall out of love, was actually used on Jace, and that explains why he's been so cold with Clary. Inside Hunter's Moon, Jace tries to get Charlie to go outside with him. Jace doesn't get to him because Izzy interrupts. So then Ollie walks in to talk to Luke, and of course she's glowing. At this point I knew that it was her. She was the one that was going to end up in trouble. Jace ends up attacking her as the owl, and I just felt so sorry for her because she spent all this time helping Luke to track down what this thing is and what it does, just for her to end up getting attacked by it. Clary and Magnus see the attack happening, try to help out, but of course it's too late because Ollie has already been possessed. Luke arrives and ends up shooting the owl, so the owl ends up revealing its true form. The one thing that I didn't really like about this episode was that ending scene. I don't know what it was, but it just felt a bit weird to me because when it was revealed that it was Jace, they really didn't seem that shocked. The way that Clary reacted, she was just like, oh my god, Jace. As though, yeah, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I'm not even shocked anymore. I think the scene probably intended to have more shock, but maybe because we've known that Jace is the owl for so long anyway, it just didn't have that shock appeal that it needed to have. Or maybe it could just be that Clary's absolutely fed up and nothing shocks her anymore. She knew that something was going on with Jace, so you know, who knows. Yeah, that was the only part of the episode that didn't really feel right to me. And that was the main action going on in this episode, but there was also the story with Simon and Heidi, which I just want to quickly mention. First of all, Heidi is terrifying. She doesn't even try, but she's creepy. The actress playing her does a wonderful job because she's just so intimidating without really having to do that much. I think it's just because she embraces the fact that she is a vampire. She's not afraid to kill mundanes. She just really doesn't care. All she wants is Simon, and it's that ruthlessness that makes her as terrifying as she is. Poor Simon ends up meeting her again in this episode. And he ends up going into a panic because it's clear that Heidi has big plans for them in the future. He spent the whole episode worrying about Maya when Heidi ended up thinking that Izzy was his girlfriend. That fight scene between her and Izzy was fantastic, by the way. I love the way that was shot. I think that was a better fight scene than the one we had at the end. And I don't know whether that's just because I love all fight scenes that contain Izzy or not, but it was beautiful. Simon ends up convincing Izzy not to turn Heidi into the clave. In the end, it's Jordan that helps him. The Praetor come to collect her. I mean, that's definitely not the last that we see of her. It can't be. Simon has doubts about this whole thing, and I think he's definitely right too. Heidi has been locked up by someone before, and although this isn't the same thing, she's not going to take too kindly to being put in a captive situation again. So I am interested to see where this story goes with them. One thing I did forget to mention actually, and I just want to quickly talk about before I wrap this video up, Luke and Maris. That scene between them in Hunter's Moon was absolutely adorable. This is a thing I can ship in the show. It wasn't even a possibility in the books, but in the show, it's gotta happen. It's gotta happen, come on. They would be adorable together, and I am 100% ready to get behind this relationship, which will happen. You know, Maris deserves a nice man, and Luke is the perfect nice man. Can you imagine him playing stepdad to not only Clary, but also the Lightwoods as well? Literal wolf dad of the year. So yeah, I'm all behind that. So they were the main points of interest in this episode. There was a lot going on, so I'm sorry for skimming over so many things. I would love to stand here and talk about everything in detail all day, but I can't. So yeah, if there is anything that you want to talk about more in depth, then please do leave it in the comments. What did you think of Jem, or Brother Zachariah? Whatever you want to call him, it's all the same thing. He's just in the show, and we can talk about him now. I am so excited for whatever we're going to see of him in the future of the show. Will has been mentioned now. We can't go back from that. We are definitely delving into the Infernal Devices story, even just a little bit. We're getting something, and I am excited. I have seen so many people complain over the past couple of years about how much they don't like this show because it's not close to the books. And there are a lot of people that don't want the show to touch the Infernal Devices, but you know what? If you don't like the show, literally just don't pay attention to it. It doesn't have to ruin the books for you. It only ruins the books if you let it. So if you don't want to go near it, don't go near it. I want the Infernal Devices brought into this show. We're 3 seasons in. I don't care. I can still enjoy the books as a separate thing. Literally don't give a shit. Just give me Will Herondale, and then give me Tessa Gray, and then I'll be happy. So yeah, please do let me know all of your thoughts and feelings on this episode. I will be back here next week with another video for you all. Thank you guys so much for watching my emotional breakdown over James Carstairs. Feel free to cry with me in the comments. Bye!